What's up, guys? Welcome back to CG. Hold up. It's your boy CG. We're back at CG Production. This is episode 4. In this episode, we're gonna go through the rebuild of the Epic. We're gonna see if everything we've done actually fixed the problem. We had some help from Evolve Visuals. They provided us a SSD card. Also, they allowed us to use their power adapter. This is gonna take you through step by step of the whole process. I hope you guys enjoy this. There's a lot of content coming after this. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna be a recap of everything we've gone through from episode 2 to episode 4, which is this episode. It's gonna be big. There's a lot of things that's happened since I've been doing this, a lot of attention, and I thank you guys who've actually been supporting me in this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to the video. I'm going to actually do a voiceover for this one because at the time that I recorded this, I was discovering a lot about the camera. At the time that I'm doing this portion of it, I'm so far beyond, I'm very refined on what I know about the camera, and it's a lot less, it wouldn't have been good for me to tell you to run the audio for that particular recording because I know I was discovering at that point. And although I want you guys to discover along with me, I would like to be a little bit more to the point when I'm doing this. These videos are long, and it'd be better if I could tell you exactly what's going on, and that way I can cut down the videos. At the end, we'll see what happens. But thanks to you guys for hanging in with me, and here we go. All right, the first thing that we have right here is the fan duct that's in every DSMC1 and really the DSMC2 cameras, but this is what it looks like in a DSMC1. This is actually the one out of the Scarlet, and that's why I'm putting the putty on it. So because the Scarlet has six pieces of RAM and the Epic has 12. So at this point right here, I've realized that because this is taken down to the bare bones, like every single board was taken off of this fan duct, which every single board kind of sandwiches around it. So this board that I'm putting on right now, I believe it's to do with some power regulation on the ISP board, and that other board that you see down there on the table is the wireless communication board, which is for your Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all that stuff. Now I'm getting the wireless board on. So I took everything down to this level but the sensor. I don't touch the sensor just because I know it has to be calibrated. So if you look, well, I don't know if I've ever shown you, but there's a lot of springs and, like, you know, screws that can be tweaked with the sensor, and I just don't quite, you know, have that grasp of it yet, and I don't, you know, I'd rather not destroy a sensor. So now I'm putting the ISP board on top of the what I'm assuming is the power regulator. There's pins that go along the side of the ISP board and pins that stick out of that power regulator board. And you just tighten it down. So the ISP has the ISP board has the image signal processors on it and the RAM, and this is also where your point of contact for the sensor. So there's 4 ribbon straps that snap into the ISP board. So right now I'm just trying to get down all 4 corners of the board and make sure that it's tight, because that I know that the putty on the back of there, the heat, what do they call it? All right, this board that I'm putting on right now is called the IOB board. Now, this is probably the most important board in the entire camera. I mean, I would even go to say over the ISP board. So the this board connects to the ISP board. It also connects to the left side board, which I'm going to tell you about later. But this does all the processing for everything that goes in and out, including power. So once we get to the next board, I'll tell you a little bit about power, but everything goes through this board. Even the ISP board gets power from this board, but it's directed through another board. So those straps that you see right there on the side that are closest to the table, those are the straps that go to the ISP. What I've done right now is I've kind of accidentally forgotten to put a shield over the cables. So all those cables get a shield put over them, and I tightened down the screws before putting that on. So now I got to take everything back off and put that back on and put the shield on. I got to take that back off and put all the straps back on, all the cables back on, and then put the shield on and then tighten it back down. See, there's where I put the straps onto the ISP board from the IOB board. So the IOB processor is actually on the underside of that board. One of the big things is making sure that so the board that I have right now is that left side board, and that's the one that, so all the power goes from the IOB board. The left side board actually connects to the IOB board in a couple ways. It has a ribbon cable, and it also has this kind of card slot that's cut into the board that kind of connects it to the board. The left side board powers your front fan, your top fan, your sensor, the ISP board. I think that's about it. But this also is what your SSD module connects to on the left side. And so this board right here, I'll explain the rest of that left side once we get there. This board right here is the IMAP board. So I haven't kind of figured out what IMAP means, but it is the input. It's like the input board from the back of your camera. So those serial pins on the back of the camera, that's the board that it connects to. Now that board actually is the first point of contact for DC power. So DC power runs into this board, and that board, and it sends it into the IOB, and then the IOB distributes that power out. Also, that IMAP board connects to the right side board, and the right side board is able to power the camera as well, because if you have a side handle, you can actually put a battery into the camera, so it'll receive power from the right side board, or the RSB. I kind of figured that out really late. There's a LSB and an RSB, but the right side board, you know what? I thought I was gonna put the shield on. I guess I still overlooked it. So the shield has to be put on, and so I'm gonna put that on now. Now I just figured out that I missed the shield. It's laying right there on the towel. But so the right side board, because it has the side handle on it, you can put the red volt batteries in there. It'll power the camera from the right side board, and it still sends it to the IMAP board. And there's a cable on there that I'll show you guys here in a second once I get this thing on. But man, putting this camera together is like a domino, and I'm able to explain it a lot better than I would have been able to explain it at this time, because even though I've put these videos out over one a week, it's still, this took about 3 or 4 days. So I actually can't even remember anymore when this was done. I've had all this footage from pretty much episode 1. Yeah, so yeah, I've had this footage for a long time. All the footage that was shot on that is all this footage is from my Sony FS5, and it's running through the Atmos recorder with the Fuji LUT. So now I'm getting all the screws tightened down on the IOB board, or I keep saying IOB board, but it's, I guess, IO board. And so you got to be careful when, or I've had to be careful with tightening down those screws on the side, because there's very tiny little circuits that if you twist those pliers too far, it could catch a circuit and break it off of the board. And the solder on these boards are very precise, because it's a double-sided board. They don't, the circuits are like mapped from one side to the other. They're not mapped through the board like some PCBs are. All right, so there's little washers that you have to put on up under that, and then you can put on the IMAP board. But I guess the IMAP, it kind of input map, I don't know, maybe that's it. I don't know. But I mean, this is the board that all your inputs go to, and then the input output board actually process it. It processes all those signals and that's put into it. Now, if you look there's a short cable that I just put on the IMAP board. That cable is the one that goes to the RSB or the right side board. So right now, I'm getting there's the little screws that tighten down for the IMAP board. And then I'm going to move on to putting the rear case on. So you see that long cable hanging down, that goes to your upper IO. So you have an upper IO and you have a lower IO. The upper IO is your HDMI, your SDI, and your gig. What is it? It's your gig E port, and that'll be your upper board. And so that's the board that stays in the back of the. So anytime you see me take these apart, there's always a board connected. That's that upper board. And right beside that, that's your DCN cable that goes into the IMAP board. Right now, I'm not very sure what I'm doing. I think I'm messing with the camera. Oh my gosh. Sorry, guys. All right, so I think it was just because I was trying to get you guys to see that, and that's that. So that long cable is running from the IOB board down to the upper IO, and that's where you see right there. I'm showing you the DCN going to the IMAP, and you have to get tweezers and kind of press it into the board, because there's no other way to get your fingers in there. You also have to be careful because there's pins on the outside of those boards that you can push through to the other side, or you can pull out of the case. You have to, and what I just did there, you have to kind of like tuck those boards in the back into the back case. So this right here is probably the hardest part of this camera, is getting the back part together. So I try not to take that apart. When I'm just doing an ISP swap, it's pretty easy. It's just I have to just take off the right side, left side, and then separate the sensor from the ISP board, and I can do the ISP swap and then put it back in and put all that back together. This right here is just, it's a lot of what gets me is that you have to be really careful, because there's cables that are sandwiched between other boards. So if you forget something, you have to take that thing all the way apart to get it back in, and then put it all back together, and hope you don't forget something again. So right now I should be about to put on the sensor. There it is right there. And And this is pretty much step by step of how to do it, the quickest easy way to do it. I've taken apart and put these things together so many times that like now I don't even look at what screws I'm putting where, or well, I know where they are. I'm not just saying I'm like putting screws randomly somewhere. I know exactly where they go. But I was being very like organized and neat at first, and then it's just so much troubleshooting, so much taking things apart and putting things together that it's just like it just makes it easier to know where they go. So there's also, just like that cable, those cables on the IO board, I also have to put what is that? So that right there, oh, you know what? So funny thing, I was just saying about not forgetting cables. So I've forgotten the cable to the looks like I've forgotten the cable to the wireless board. So the cable to the wireless board comes from the IOB board, and it's up under the board. So the IOB board is the actual closest board to the fan. So you have to take apart that entire sandwich layer and to put that on. So this also has that protective shield, just like the IOB board cables, and it just helps it. It makes sure that the cables don't come apart. Oh, actually, it's on there. I don't know where that cable came from. I guess we'll see here in a minute. That wireless cable is on there. I just seen it. So this right here is the lower IO, and if you guys remember back when I opened up the Scarlet at first, that was actually the first time opening it up. This chip fell off the board, so now I need to solder that back on. And I mean, the lower board isn't as important to me as the upper board, because this is just dealing with audio and headphone, and I mean, you know, all I need is one side for scratch audio. I don't really care about the audio from the red. So now there's my crappy solder job. Like, I was literally trying to just get this thing done. So I just did a rough little solder. It's just a tack on both sides of it. So it's in there and it works. It's just a crappy solder job. I should have done a better job. In the middle, if I was still in the military and somebody brought me that, yeah, they would have to redo that. It's funny. All right, so basically I got to get this. I don't know why I'm like showing this board off so much, but right now I got to get that board into the. That board actually attaches to the sensor. There's 2 screws on the sensor, and there's 2 cables that are underneath that connect onto that board for the left and right microphone. So you see those cables there at the bottom. Those 2 at the bottom down there on the sensor, those are the ones that have to go into that lower IO board. And the lower IO board connects to the RSB, which is the right side board. You have to be really careful when putting we'll get to that in a second because I don't want to jump ahead, but you have to be careful what screws you put where, and know what lengths, because I actually early on messed that up, and I put a long screw that was right in that went right into the cable from the lower IO board and the RSB, and it could have cut that cable and caused some serious issues, but it wasn't bad. It just kind of indented it a little bit. This camera I'm so impressed with how well this thing is built, and it's like the cables are so rigid. I'm gonna tell you, I'm still working on this Canon 5D Mark III, and I've got to get more parts. I've just put so much money in it that I just stopped caring and wanted to put my money elsewhere, and so right now I haven't been doing any photography. But this camera is like, I love working on it because even though it takes a little time, it actually progresses. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to worry about breaking anything. It's such a resilient camera, and like I think what ends up happening to these cameras most of the time is cold solder. And so what I want to do ultimately is to get to circuit board level of repair. So instead of actually replacing cards or anything like that, I want to actually repair the circuit boards, because I'm pretty sure at this point, I've done a lot of this in the Air Force. The systems will get cold solder and they will start throwing faults, and you'll be chasing wires forever. And there's times where it could just be cold solder, where you haven't had to work on the system so long, different temperatures, weather, and weather environments. It causes these kind of things. And with the age of this camera, it's not a surprising thing that there would be some kind of cold solder in these things. I think I'm explaining now the upper and lower board. So there's also a slot that's in the sensor that you have to make sure that it slots in there, or you can't pull the camera together. So now I'm just explaining what the lower board is and what the upper board is. You guys are ahead of the game. I've already let you know. So everything I'm explaining, you can just tell me. Do your own voiceover. All right. So now, I should be going to put the bottom plate on. That right there is the top plate, and that wire right there goes to the wireless board. Man, that screwdriver I have there is amazing. I love that thing. So there I am putting that together. So it's nearly together. So what I do is I put the top and bottom plate on just to hold the camera together, because, well, it just makes sense when you're putting on the last two boards before you put on the left and the right side board. I put the top and bottom plate on so the camera has a structure, cause the screws that the left and right side board go into, they're obviously in a mapped out place, and the camera has to be together for those to go in and fit right. So that's what the side you're looking at right now is, the left side. And if you look there towards the back, you see a little piece coming out. That's the actual the IO board, where it distributes power. Well, I think that's one of the ways it distributes power. Actually, you know what? Thinking about it now, that's probably not it could be power, but it also could, since that's the IO board, like it has to get, there's also a cable that connects up under it that could be power. Looks more like similar to the power cable. That right there is the top board, and I'm about to feed it down through these cables and connect it into the wireless board. But there's you have that chip that sticks out, and then there's also another serial cable that kind of that clicks under the bottom of the left side board, and one of those is power and one of those is data. So all the data has to be sent to the IO board for processing. And this is the right side. There's not a lot to do on the right side. There's only two cables. There's one from the IMAP board, and there's one from the lower IO board. And so right now I'm just tightening up the frame to get everything ready to put those two boards on. Now you see that that cable that's right there next to the last screw I just put in. That's for your top fan. So this build is not, I'm not gonna have, I obviously don't have the upgrade fan in that. I put it into my Scarlet, which is the working camera. But also the left side board that I have, I guess there's an issue where those fan upgrades, the chip gets hot and it can actually desolder it from the board. So that's what happened to this left side board. So you see right here, I'm picking up the wires that I'm picking up. That one right there is to the sensor, and the one behind it right there is to the ISP board. Also, what I should have done before that is there's up under that board right now. What I just done was I connected that other cable, what I was telling you, from the IMAP, I mean not the IMAP, but the IO board, and it's seated into that card slot. but before that left side went in, at the front of it, underneath it, there's a port for the fan to go in. So now I'm putting in the power cables for, well, I'm explaining now that whole fan port. And now I'm about to secure the board into that slot. But those two cables there, one goes to the sensor and one goes to the ISP board. You have to be careful as well, because there is a speaker that's at the back of that, at the back there, and that cable runs underneath that left side board, and you can, if you're not careful, you can squeeze that cable and pinch it in between the IO board and the frame. I mean, not the IO board, but the left side board and the frame. So you got to be careful. So also there's I believe some data transfer cable that's from the sensor that I just clipped on there too. So this is the RSB, or the right side board, and so there should be a cable. Okay, there it goes. So that right there, that cable I'm just clipping down, is from the IMAP, and that's where I believe well, that's what cable the IMAP gets its power from when the left side board has a side handle with a battery in it, but it also sends and receives power the same. So I'm just now securing that in, and there's four screws in this side, and you have to be careful when putting these in, because see, right now I guess the frame needs to be adjusted, because sometimes the screws don't fit as well as they should. No, I'm not quite sure why I'm completely taking this thing off. Oh, yep, I've forgotten that cable. And right now I'm just telling you that it says the lower IO and to the RSB, which is the right side board, and we all know that now. Okay, come on, guy, let's go. Oh man, I've had some. I can't wait to like tell you guys like everything that's happened next week, and it's a lot to kind of get out, but there's so much to come in the future. So just getting that guy back secured. So at the point that I have it right now, I have the left side and the right side on. That's as far as troubleshooting and seeing if something works. That's as far as I need to put the camera together. I don't need to put in everything else. Is just the covers. So the camera is all the way back together right now itself. It's missing the side covers. So that's all I have to do right now. I'm still securing the bottom, but at this point I can test the camera. We just have to see if that's what the next process that I'm going through. And yeah, I listened through this and start hearing myself explain. I'm like, I'm just discovering things at that point. And as to now, I can pretty much definitely tell you how the signal, how everything flows through this camera. And being that also the RSB board, just like the right side, has a connector underneath it. It's not a serial cable that goes to it, but it not only it connects to the IMAP board like I'm kind of just thinking about this in my mind. the RSB connects to the IMAP like the LSB does to the IO board. So there's a connector underneath it, and there's a strap that's on it. So it's connected in two places, and one's I'm sure there's like just a power data situation there. I'm pretty sure the one up underneath, now thinking about it, both sides, I think the underneath one is the power port, and the other cables are for data. So I'm pretty sure I'm getting this together to the point where I can put the side handle on it, because the side handle allows me to access the menus. So this is the panel also that you have to be careful where you put those screws. I normally put the longest screw in the back corner, so above all the IO ports, that screw back there, I normally put the longest screw back there, because anything in front of that, you're gonna mess something up putting it in there. So I'm pretty sure that's where it goes, because it has nothing to hit at that point. So now I've put, I didn't even put all the screws in. I'm like, screw it. Yeah, so now I've put the side handle on, and I'm about to start plugging it up, and this is where it should resume normal speed. All right, so I'm waiting for everything to boot up, and we'll see what we get. What do you guys think? Go ahead and comment. Is it gonna work, or is it not gonna work? Let me know. Do it before it comes on. Oh, did I give it? Is that a clue? Is that a clue to what just happened right now? I don't know what's going on. Staring at a blank screen. We're not having issues with this one. Not like the last time. We're just waiting for this thing to start up, I think. No, we are. Come on, guy. Yo, this is just as tense for me, because like, I don't know when it's gonna come on. It should be soon though. Come on. There, yeah. Didn't work. All right, but don't fret, because we have one more thing to try. Evolve Visual sent us over he came to the studio, and he provided us with a SSD, so we get to actually redo the firmware, which that's what it's saying. It's a firmware issue. So I should be shutting it down here in a second, and then switching over to putting in the SSD card. Come on, like I feel the same anticipation that anybody would do watching it, because like right now I'm sure I'm explaining a lot of things, and I actually like this whole voiceover thing a lot better, because like going through it, I talk. I'm a talker. I talk when I work, and it slows me down. So I sped like every clip up in this that I could, except for this. Obviously, I don't know what I'm talking about at this point, but here we are. So I'm probably gonna what I'm gonna do is cut this short so that we can get on to the next point. Okay, now we're shutting down. That's when it was shut down. All right, now we're about to put the SSD in there. We just got firmware on there. And so I want you guys to tell me something, right? I'll wait till this happens, but I want you guys to tell me something. You guys who've done these firmware upgrades and everything. So I slide this card in, right? Then I press it, And then what happens? All right, that light came on. What am I doing? What am I doing? So I'm gonna tell you guys something. So like these two lights, like the lights that are over there flashing, is this what normally happens? I don't know what normally happens, and I didn't get the chance to ask the guy from Evolve Visuals. Does it normally do this flashing of those two lights right there? Does that normally flash, and does it normally go straight to red after that? Like, is that the normal process of what happens? Somebody tell me, because I need some help on that. All right, so now I'm gonna pull out the card. And we're gonna turn this thing on. All right, so we're waiting for our startup light, which is our little orange light. There's our orange light. Now we're waiting for our green light, and then after that, we should get something on the screen. Come on, green light. All right, so now we got a green light. All right, so the screen didn't show up on camera. I had the red Scarlet recording this, and whatever settings I had didn't work. So I'm gonna come back in and tell you guys what happened. Still a disappointment that we didn't get the Epic running, but that's still a work in progress. Everything that's happening here is kind of happening in the moment, when I can afford to do it, the resources I have available. So I do plan to get the Epic going. It's just gonna take more time, and right now a lot of big things have happened, and please tune in next week. I'm gonna lay out everything that's happened since I've gotten this camera, and it's literally changed a lot in my life. Yeah, right now we're still working at the Epic. The issue is the ISP board that's in the Epic, which is a very important board, is the same board that doesn't work with the Scarlet, and that's the board I had to change. So there may be some things I need to do also with the ISP board. I don't want to continue to take apart the Scarlet, which right now has the entirety of an Epic body right now. I think the Epic body looks cooler. This is the Scarlet body with the Epic ISP board in it. Now that I've been doing this series, it's not as discouraging to me not fixing the Epic, because I actually achieved a lot. It was bigger than just repairing a camera. This whole situation has been bigger than repairing a camera. I don't want to get too much into everything, because this is going to be a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about in next week's episode, which is going to be episode 5, and that's going to be the recap. So thank you guys again for your support. This is your boy CG, and I'm out.